How does a little record player lead to working on Star Wars? This episode of Neurodisruptors features the delightful Haresh Patel, who is one of the most fascinating people I have ever met. I could listen to him talk about sound for weeks. Now, he spent his film career on all things sound, sonic experiences, windswept documentary sets, immersive VR, and incredible locations like Iceland and the Himalayas. Harish is a versatile sound recordist and a post-production sound editor who shapes how audiences experience sound. His career has taken him across the world, over 100 projects. And he brings this rare blend of technical precision and creative vision to every project. He's a member of BAFTA Connect, the Association of Motion Picture Sound, and the Institute of Professional Sound. And today we're going to dive into his journey, his philosophy on sound, and what it means to truly listen. And we're going to hear a great story about Jeremy Irons. So thank you, Harish, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, man. I want to meet this person. He sounds amazing. That is not me at all.
That's, look, I'm very excited to tell the world exactly what you've done to improve our experience on sound. So, but as always, it's great to start at the beginning. So you have a really interesting entryway into sound, stretching back to your childhood. So let's talk about the record player.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, I think for a lot of people get into film sound, they come from a musical background, and we can get into that a little bit later. But my uncle gave me a record player. Well, gave me a record player to play with when I was a kid, and I had maybe one record or two records that were like Bollywood throwaway, like stuff that fell in the bin, and I took it out and played with it. So I listened to these bits of plastic making sound as much as I could. Like it just was really interesting, the reproduction of mechanical sound. And of course, I'm a kid, so you play with the needle and you play with the arm, and what happens if you touch it? And then you get all these amazing new sounds from scratching the needle on your fingerprint because that has grooves, and you get all these DJ style like scratch record sound effects. Like, oh, this is very interesting. And I did that for a long time. I remember just being in my room playing with my finger on pressing on the needle and making scratch sounds and just seeing how movement makes different sounds and pressure makes different sounds, and you could blow on the needle and make it move and make a sound. And that's one aspect of my very odd little childhood.
And you said that you had to play with the record player though, didn't you? With the jack and that kind of changed things for you.
Yeah, so this suitcase record player, it's in the shape of a briefcase that you open up. I thought it was amazing. It had a microphone jack on it, with a sort of cheap microphone, and you plug it in and you can talk into this microphone and have it come out of the speakers. That's very interesting. Um, I discovered that if you plug that same microphone into the headphone output of this record player, you could make the microphone be a little speaker. Like it's a tiny little speaker on a cable. Instead of coming out of the main speakers, you could have it come out of this microphone. And it just completely blew my mind that, oh, wow. So sound goes this way from microphone into speakers, but speakers can also be microphones. And that was a whole new discovery that I did nothing with for many years. But I thought that was very interesting, and I think it grew a few seeds in my brain that took a long time to come to fruition. But I thought that was very interesting that microphones and speakers are the same thing in different directions.
And so what came next? Was it the pop band or was it the record scratching, the old school hip hop record scratching? Because both of them are amazing.
It's gotta be. It's got well. You think chronologically, uh, yeah, DJing hip hop, BMX bikes, all of that kind of stuff was when I was like 10, 11, 12,
Mhm.
like the early days of sort of New York hip hop, scratch, DJ scratching, turntable kind of stuff. Nothing that I would be interested in being able to do. Just did not have the physical capacity to do any of that. But as a way of making sounds from mechanical objects by manipulating them and the whole wonderful world of sounds with scratching, I just, yeah, it was very hypnotizing for me. I found it incredibly attractive to watch and listen to. And I had a BMX when I was a kid, so BMX biking and all that kind of stuff. Definitely.
I love that. And were there any particular artists who you were influenced by when when you were getting into scratching?
That is, oh my God, I don't think I have the memory for that kind of thing. Jam Master Jay, definitely. Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Yes.
Um, oh man, okay, my shredded memory can only remember those two, but Sir Mix-a-Lot, 100%.
I love that. No, that's absolutely fine. So let's talk about the pop band, then I need to hear all about it. We all do.
Well, I mean, kids are kids. And so the thing that happens with teenagers all over the world in all sorts of ways. And now I understand why it happens, but your brain chemistry changes. You seek certain mechanisms, and music has always been a really good mechanism for that teenager change, and especially now with recorded music. We all, the access to the recorded world of bands and that kind of thing. It's incredible for teenagers. Like we have this new species of teenagers, have had this new species of teenagers that have really bonded with music. And I bonded with my best friend at the time, um, discovered this band together that absolutely changed our lives. Um, and from that, we formed a pop band. Now, we were kids in school, and so I got a guitar, and we started making a racket with guitars and singing, um, and that led to sort of having a pop band of shaky capability, shaky quality, but it was a band, and we loved it. We were being in a band. So yeah, that was my teenage years, listening to music, and then eventually kind of wriggling to making music. Um, yeah,
How did
playing with.
making music, how did you use sound in music and how did it kind of shape how you saw sound?
Hmm. I think I was generally aware of the technical side of making music because I had a sort of, as many kids did, had a sort of ghetto blaster style radio with a microphone on it, and it's a tape machine, so you record sound onto tapes. The wonderful world of like recording bands off the radio and trying to edit out the DJ and the very nuanced timing of getting the timing just right so you don't miss too much of the beginning. That kind of thing, and playing with the microphone, just taking the ghetto blaster outside to the traffic and recording the sound of the traffic. So initial sort of tasters of how things are affected by where you put the microphone and how loud the source goes in, and that kind of thing helped with recording music in general. Like the first recorder I had was that. So we would sing guitar and voice straight into a microphone on the ghetto blaster, and that was all that we had. But it taught me a lot about um, where you play your stuff, the relative volume of singing, and how far you need to be further back, and positioning, that kind of thing. These are really sort of fundamental concepts to recording. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know that that was happening at the time. You just kind of do it, and you think, oh, how can I make this better? Oh, why don't we move closer, etc., etc. And that lends an interactive experience of how even basic microphones and expensive microphones do exactly the same thing. Um, yeah, those basics really helped with getting really interested in the technicalities of recording.
So, that's really interesting because I I find it fascinating. Like what fascinates me about listening to you talk is that this is stuff that a lot of us take for granted, even though we notice it
Yes.
and we get it on some level. It's not something that people really talk about. Why do you think that that is? Why do you think that sound doesn't get the same type of recognition that visuals do or whatever else?
I mean, that's an excellent question. And, I think there are solid reasons why. Um, just from being this old and learning about neurology and the history of ourselves, my position is um, the fact that you hear anything and can detect and discern so much information without apparently any effort is a biological reality that we all have. Sound is obviously invisible, but it's also invisible to us from a processing point of view, because it's so stitched into what we are as people that the division is uh, essentially not there. What you hear and how you listen is what you are. Um, I have a running joke, which is like we live our lives with four senses running because people just don't know or think consciously about what is happening with their ears. It's so much a part of their existence that there's no energy required to confirm that you exist.
Mhm.
So you have all these other danger sets of information flow coming into you. But your ears are the most accurate. The first sense that comes online. So when you're about 12 weeks as a fetus, on average, even though you haven't got the entire set of equipment of your ears as you know them,
Mhm.
the detection equipment starts getting wired up and getting put together. So the very first things that you hear as a preborn infant is the sound of your mother, the blood flow, the heartbeat, the laugh, crying, like all of those communication assets are starting to get burnt into you at a DNA neurological level before you're even born. So you come out a fully hearing infant, baby, with all of this technology running. Um, and I propose that that's why it's so difficult to talk about sound because it's so much a part of your reality that you don't even know that it's not part of your. It's a separate thing from your reality. I
And
didn't make much sense there.
no,
It's
no, no, I
very.
love that. But that begs another question I'm so intrigued by. For people who are hard of hearing,
Mhm.
is it a thing where they still, because of vibrations, that they're still the same, weaving into our DNA and who we are as people?
Sure. Is it the same for
Yeah.
non-hearing people? I propose it is absolutely exactly the same. And the information that I can back up that with is you don't just hear with your ears, you hear with your entire body. Um, so have you've been to a church or a concert hall with a pipe organ, right?
Yes.
There's like up to 10,000 pipes or whatever it is. Each one of those individual pipes is there for one bit of sound, one bit of note. And that's why you have loads and loads of them. And they're all different sizes and they all make different sounds and different combos make different sounds. That's how a pipe organ works. You have different bits of your body and they all vibrate. What you hear through your ears is one asset class of vibrations through air. But all of you vibrates when you listen to anything. your eyelashes are very responsive to ultrasound, very, very high frequencies. So when you hear a violin in real life, a violin puts out tons of sounds that you can hear. That's what makes violins nice, right? But there's also lots of very high frequencies happening at the same time, and they're not heard by the ear; they're heard by your eyes, your hair, the hair on your arms hears ultrasound, that kind of thing. And other bits of your body are denser, and so they respond to lower frequencies in an appreciable way. So that's why everybody loves bass, everybody loves jungle, all that kind of stuff. Everybody likes to dance to big fat bass sounds because it moves your body physically, and that generates a neurological response, that generates a hormonal response. That hormonal response is what we love about music.
Oh, that's so cool. Oh my God. See, this is what I mean about how I could talk forever about this. So this is very interesting. After talking about sound in a collective type of way, I'm interested in sound and how it influences you as a neurodivergent person. So I'd like to know a little bit more, and all of us would actually, about how neurodivergence gives you a specific advantage to sound and your job, or challenges that you work around.
That's good. I want to edit in one thing that rambled on and forgot
It's
to
okay.
say.
That's no problem.
It's to go back to that idea of non-hearing
Yes.
people. Evelyn Glennie is like a world-class percussionist. She went deaf, I think, around the age of 12, I think. Um, so, I mean, there's categories of people that are born deaf, congenitally deaf, and they hear things in a very interesting way. There's people that uh, have conditional hearing loss, and they hear things another different way. Evelyn Glennie, I would say, is an excellent example of non-hearing, but 1000% locked in with vibration and music. Um, yeah, go check out go check out Evelyn Glennie and the incredible way that she plays through vibrations rather than sound through air, uh, that kind of thing.
Oh, I know what I'm doing after this recording. So,
Anyway,
I
so
love
back to
that.
you.
Yeah, no, well, what's interesting. So now, like, we've talked a little bit about sound and how it influences us, how it's weaved into our experience collectively.
Yeah.
I'd like to know a little bit more about things from a sensory point of view for you. So I'd like to know more about, and all of us would like to know more about, what is it about sound that you as a neurodivergent person see as a both a benefit, like a distinct advantage, and a challenge.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I guess it's okay. So the way that I hear things, I guess egotistically or subjectively, I would like to think that's a useful way of hearing things that could be used in a creative way because I notice the way that sounds are layered and what kinds of sounds are happening subjectively more than the average person, to the point where I find it very hard to turn that down. There are a small group of people that find it very hard to de-escalate the importance of sounds,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
categorize how relevant and important they are, which we do invisibly all day, 24 hours a day. Um, I would say that that's the equivalent of having very sharp, clear vision, which I do not have, and being able to see things like visual artists see things that the data is going in, but they just process it in a slightly different way or in a more attuned way. My ego would like to think I can do some of that. I guess the disadvantage is exactly that, that come times when it would be productive to have that sensitivity be less. It's very hard to make that less, and that can present challenges that you feel is overwhelming. Every day might feel a bit overwhelming, or things that don't disturb the average person are very hard to handle.
That's so interesting because going on what you said about how sound is a physical experience, right? It's not just
Mhm.
about ears, it's about our eyelashes and our skin and everything
Sure.
else. I wonder if that's why, 'cause speaking from personal experience, sound is the quickest thing that will overwhelm me in a sensory point of view.
Mm.
Complex sound or a sound, a frequency I don't like or whatever else. Do you reckon that the reason why so many of us react so viscerally when we're in a sound environment that we don't like is because it's a full body experience and so it's not just overwhelming our ears?
That's a good one. Yes. So on the technical level, sound comes into your ears, it gets turned into electricity that gets distributed across loads of parts of your brain, um, in parallel to process what is happening. Do I need to worry about this? Should I be jumping out of this window? Should I be jumping away from the tiger? Is this nice? That kind of stuff there's millions of individual process points that are happening with sound. Um, the the instant reaction to sound is not an intellectual response. It's an emotional response. And your emotions are governed by the hormonal orchestra of what is happening in your body at that time. So if you need to be if you need to be temporarily highly active and stressed because there's a tiger or a van just about to run you over, then you need a hit of cortisol and adrenaline to make you get out of the way. That's what your body does. It it controls your body and its responses, and its usefulness with hormones. And your hormones and your hearing are very much tied together. So you feel sound, you feel sound and emote to it before you intellectually appreciate it. The easiest example is that you could play the blues to people that have never heard Western music at all, and they'll get it. They'll either like it or they won't like it. But how they respond is instantaneous. You don't need education. You don't need intellectual understanding about 12 bar blues or anything or tuning or four music. You don't need any of that. That's intellectual stuff. You either like it or you don't like it. That's an instant reaction.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit, let's go on from that and talk a little bit about sound and how it influences audiences and
Mm.
in film, right?
Okay.
And TV and whatever else. So one of the things that I loved that you said when we chatted before was that you make a bridge from the performer to the audience.
Mm.
So what is it that we as an audience need to know about how sound has a role in how we experience films and that kind of media?
That's a good one. Need to know? I would have to say you don't need to know anything. You shouldn't need to know how sounds work to appreciate them.
Mhm.
Um, Again, that turns into an intellectual, cultural education narrative, and that's not how sound works, for
So
people
how
as a
about in a
species. But
right.
go on, sorry, go on.
No, but so how about then let's do a real world example. So
Okay.
one of the things I remember you talking about was that if we're in a film and a
Mm,
character makes a decision or if we want to learn something about a character, you can choose, you may choose specific sounds or make decisions about what type of sounds you can use to sh get the audience more of a feel of what's going on and give them information about what's going on in the film. So how does that work?
fair enough. Yeah, so actors definitely know that there are things that you're trying to say with the words on the script. There's things that you need to get across to your other characters, as well as to the audience as a third party participant to that acting thing. Um, and good actors know that there's the thing that you're saying, and there's the thing that you're not saying, and the things that you're doing, and the things that you're not doing. And these kind of four corners of a square are like the baseline storytelling devices that actors like either instantly know or get, very quickly pick up on. These are the things that we all do as people, and we are all characters. I'm right now trying to tell you something with words. I'm trying to avoid saying X, Y, and Z, but the avoidance makes the cadence of what I'm saying change. Um, so, like a simple like acting exercise of two people, and one of them says "I love you," and the other one says "I know." That's the script. How many different ways of how many different ways can you say "I love you"? I know. How many different ways can you say "I love you" but not say something else? And the other person says "I know," but what they really mean is X, Y, and Z. So there's millions of different combinations of that tiny little script idea. You can have an entire relationship assumed by the way that you say, I love you, I know. Would that be right? And so those tiny little inflections of timing and frequency and tuning and tone, delay between call and response, all of those things have meaning to them. And the audience know those things because they live meaning every single day. And actors in films try to play with the strings of meaning to emulate a whole different new universe inside the film by using these ways of meaning.
I love that. And like, so can I get, because first of all, Empire Strikes Back, I know exactly what you're referring and like,
Yeah,
come on, Leia and Han. Yeah.
right?
I remember that moment and the wobbliness in her voice
Yeah.
and you can tell like the way that he pulls back Harrison Ford and he's quiet, which he's not usually quiet. And there's a certainty there that is not in her voice. And
Mhm.
it's so, this is exactly what I'm talking about is looking at things in a different way once you understand how important sound is.
Sure.
So we're going to talk about a couple of your jobs in a second, but what I would love to know is in terms of like your sound design and whatever else, and for those of people who might be watching, what I'm talking about is after things have been shot, like the film has been shot and whatever else, you sit and go, okay, we need to do this here and we need this type of sound here. And so I would love to know, was there ever a time where you were in conflict with the editor or the director or whatever about a sound and how that should change or that isn't enough or whatever else? Maybe not, but if there was, I'd love to know about it.
All the time. 90%
Really?
of my work. Yeah, 90% of the work is
Fighting.
well, ideally not.
Yeah.
Uh, but you know, you're trying to say something with the sounds that you're putting into somebody else's film. But that somebody else also has a thing that they're trying to say with their film. And what they're trying to say with their film should be what you're trying to say with your input into their film. You're there as a part. You're there as a contributor, definitely, but you're also there as a supporter. And there's a commercial and creative line to be um, held to keep honest with your creative input, but also supporting what that other person is aiming to do. And uh, sometimes conflicts happen and are resolved by walking away or being sacked. Both of those things are real. Um, and sometimes, ideally, the target is what you contribute from yourself is appreciated by the person you're contributing it for,
Mhm.
and the audience get the symbiotic results of what the director is trying to do or the actors are trying to do and what I think might help get that over to the audience. Like the film is ideally a mirror to your inner self. There's a really good art project. I saw some Instagram something, a video about an art project of a photographer goes into cinema and has a plate, I think a plate camera or 5x4 camera, and the exposure is the length of the film. So essentially, it's the entire film on the screen of this cinema, being shown to you in a photograph. So obviously, it's all very white. But I thought that was a very interesting way of looking at it. Like this, you're looking at a film as a mirror into your own soul, if you want to get sort of wishy-washy about it, and it reflects and brings out some aspects of your own self that you maybe couldn't see by looking into a mirror.
Oh, that's very cool. Um, I love that. And it's so interesting to have a very clear creative vision of how you see sound working in a particular project, especially knowing what you know about it, and kind of, figuring out how to collaborate with people who might have a very different idea.
Hmm.
Which leads us to, I mean, you've worked on over 100 projects, so which is crazy as far as like amazing. Do you know what I mean? But I'm interested in three, if we could just talk about them really quickly. The first one is tell me about working with Jeremy Irons, please.
Working with Jeremy Irons was for not a film.
Oh, right.
That
Okay.
was just a corporate project that Jeremy Irons was
I still need to
on,
know. I
and
still, we need to know, all of us.
such a nice man with such an incredible voice that I've known from the movies for a very long time. Like he's very charismatic, um, and I did get to say to him, "Thank you for one of my favorite films with him in it. It's called Margin Call, and he's not in it for very long, but he's a key character in the film, and it's the film is like this major stock stock exchange, American stock exchange disaster. Companies in free fall overnight, and everybody gets called in to a meeting. And Jeremy Irons, being the incredibly charming, just he's silk made human form. He walks in just so beautifully dressed and just so smiling, and everything's calm and very lovely. It's 3 in the morning, and he calls the meeting and he says, "I'm not going to do the impression, but he says, well, thank you everyone for waking me up for an ungodly hour. We are obviously in a little bit of a crisis, and I just like somebody to explain to me what is going on." That's what comes out of the screen. That's what comes out of the script. That's what comes out to the camera. Um, the contrast is with what he as a character is doing with his hands. The whole time he's saying that, he's tapping a pen on the surface of the table, and you get this very visceral, very intuitive contrast between what is being said and what he's doing. He's expressing his frustrations through that tiny little action and the tiny little sound of a pen hitting the board, the table, and that tells you everything about how angry he is without having to hear anything that indicates anger. He doesn't have to shout at all, or it's all of that emotion is said through the sound of a pen clicking on the table. And I thought that was really lovely.
I
And he
love
laughed.
And you're right, his voice is it's silk, isn't it? It's amazing. Just an offshoot question. Are there any other actors, like celebrities, whatever, whose voice you love, who you think is
His
just
voice I love.
bonus?
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Um, I don't know if I've ever been asked that question. I've been asked that question. There's loads of people whose there's loads of people whose voice I find very entertaining. Um, who's their girlfriend in Friends? I never remember her name.
Janice.
Janice. I love Janice's voice. I think she's awesome. It's whether I would want to listen to it 24 hours a day. That's a personal question, and I refuse to answer. But
I love that. She sounds like my grandmother from Brooklyn.
oh my
Like she
God, I
sounds
find her
exactly
voice
like her.
very entertaining. It's very musical. Yeah, to me, it's very musical.
That's hilarious. I've heard it described as a klaxon before. Do you know what I mean? But hey, you
I
know what? Even klaxons, I guess, are musical to someone. So
Klaxons are music. Yes, sound is music.
I love that. So can we talk about a different one then? Let's talk about you going to Iceland, and I don't mean the
Sure.
grocery store, obs. I mean the country. So you did some sound work in Iceland. What was
Did.
that like?
Yeah. One of the most amazing sonic and personal and sensory experiences of my meager existence. I loved it. So I got out there for a short film, like sort of a teaser project for a feature. And that was the first time I'd been to Iceland and completely loved it. Completely loved the cold, the sound of the air out there, the windswept landscapes of the light. Like everything sounds different out there. Everything looks different out there. It's like being transported to another planet to
What's
me.
what stands out to you when you say it sounds different? What is it?
I would have to think. Okay, so intellectually, I guess it's because the air has a different consistency out there. It's obviously much colder. It's on a different plane on Earth, so there's a different. Gravity is not flat on Earth like the. Oh yeah, different areas of
What?
Earth, different areas of the planet have different gravity densities to them. Um, yeah, and they affect you. They affect you. They affect your body.
Okay.
I propose conditionally that people get affected by very northern countries because the map of gravity changes you and it changes the way that your body responds to the planet, that kind of thing. But also just the cold, it's very still, it's very easy to get to places where there's very little um, built environment sound.
Mhm.
And because we all, most of us live in the built environment, so we're all tuned into being not that far away from civilization. There's something amazing that happens to you as a person when you get to a position where there is no evidence of civilization either in your ears or in your eyes, or around you. Like if you go to not Iceland but go to anywhere, a forest where you're in the middle of it and there's no footpath left. There's nothing that would indicate that you're near of anything human or other humans. Something changes in your biology. Something changes in the way that you hear things. Um, I couldn't quite document it right now, but I'm telling you, man, try it. It's amazing. It's a quite a powerful experience for everyone to have a go with. And
Did you
Iceland does that for me a lot.
did you have a favorite sound when you were in Iceland that we don't get anywhere else?
Good one. Good one. I don't know about favorite sound. The gurgle. Well, I don't know about favorite sound. There's great sounds everywhere, like the gurgling of water coming through holes in the ground, like gurgling volcanic um, holes in the ground. Those kind of things I thought were really fascinating. Yeah, bubbling water was always very interesting. But yeah, wind. Um, Iceland is very windy. It's unbelievably windy. Um, and it's quite an experience feeling it go into your bones and out the other side. Like it's very strong. But I loved it. Um, there was one cove that we went to on one of the shooting days subsequently, and the water would very gently lap along this stony volcanic stone beach, I guess, like a little cove, and the water would lap left to right as it went across um, the front of the beach, and it was incredibly clear and tight when it goes across. Like you could follow the sound of it moving left to right very accurately. So I would sit there and just close my eyes and listen to the sound of water going left to right as it moved, as the waves came in. That was a very nice, happy place moment.
That's amazing. Okay, before we get to the last question, well, the second to last question, which is about Star Wars Alps, I just needed to know, like, because you just talked about a clean sound there. Are there any messy sounds that stand out to you? Do you know what I
Ooh,
mean by messy? Like,
these are good questions. Messy sounds that stand out to me.
it doesn't have to be in Iceland, I'm just curious.
That's a good one. Um, factories with repetitive machines. I really like those kind of things. Um, why do I like those kind of things? Because it's a kind of dance music. It's
Mm.
repeating cells of sound, and they create a musicality from their repetition. Um, I just enjoy that kind of thing. A good example of what that might mean for anyone else is, do you remember a TV series called Spaced?
Yeah, of course. Come on,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Now I'm going to mess up the name of the character, but Wheels, the bicycle courier,
Yeah.
the raver, like the bit when he's sitting there, he comes into the house that they're all staying in, and can you put the kettle on? And the kettle comes on, and there's repeating bits of sound,
Yes,
and
yes, yes,
he hears
yes.
it as dance music, and he's getting into it.
Yes, yes, yes.
That that is basically a comedy version of what things do when you hear repeated sounds in the built environment, and factory sounds and noises and things do that a lot because it's repeating machines. But that's a real thing, and we all do it. We all know that's how repeating sounds make interesting dance music. This is really funny, I thought as
I
well.
love that. Like, and that's so cool. And space is everything Edgar Wright does is amazing. So it's
Yeah.
like whatever. But he's so actually we talked about this before, didn't we? His appreciation of sound in his film
Yeah.
is
Yes.
incredible because he builds scenes. Like Baby Driver is a perfect example. That first opening scene with the robbery
Mm,
is incredible. And then even going from that bit, which is all sound construction to move the everything along, the characters, the plot, everything. But then he pulls back and baby's like getting coffees and walking through the city and everything is a soundscape and I just find that's so fascinating, like approaching it from that multi-sensory kind of place is
it's
magnificent.
absolutely brilliant. It's a great way of saying the phrase the music of our lives. It's like music is stitched into our lives. Now these days, people listen to music on their earphones or headphones all the time. We are creating a soundtrack for our day. We use music to get away from our day. We use music to make our day go less slowly. um, yeah, like we have the capacity to create our own soundtrack, and that's what the character in Baby Driver is doing all the time. Like that's the running joke in the film, that he constantly listens to music.
Yeah, he's kind of detached from what's going on around him. And
Mm,
what's really interesting, obviously, about the character is that's related to his trauma from childhood and the
mhm.
death of his parents and whatever else. So yeah, it's absolutely amazing. So and now this is very interesting because so we need to talk Star Wars. Now I am particularly so you had worked on episode 7, right? Force Awakens, no, Phantom Menace.
Correct.
Yes, okay.
Force Awakens.
Force Awakens, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and the EPK, right? The electronic press kit about it. So,
Yeah, so
what
it's the behind the scenes footage.
behind the scenes stuff? So, what I'm particularly interested in, besides anything that you want to mention about that experience, is how does emotionally being excited about something that you're working on influence how you approach sound and whatever else? Because I don't think if I was working on a Star Wars thing, and I'm sure everybody in the audience has got their own things that they get excited about. I don't think I would approach it in the same way. I think that I would be pouring out with so much excitement that it would influence what I was doing. Do you know what I mean? So I was wondering, did you have that type
Sure.
of experience? How did your emotional tie to Star Wars as a brand and whatever else influence what you did on the
How do
project?
you handle being a fanboy?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's the one. That's what I'm
that's
talking about. Go
yeah. I
on, tell me
mean,
about your fanboy experience.
that is what everybody who has worked on Star Wars over the generations has had to handle. There's classic footage of Ewan McGregor and uh, Samuel Jackson. Uh, Definitely Ewan McGregor. Talking about when they shooting scenes with lightsabers and being told not to make the sounds with their voice because it's just ingrained into their childhoods, all of our childhoods. These sounds are shorthand for many, many things. Star Wars is a great example of the magic of sound from movies radiating out to the everyday life of us as people. And yeah, just being stitched into our own lives. I thought it was yeah, Star Wars is very interesting on multiple levels. But back to your thing, yeah, I mean, you're there to do a job, so you gotta focus and maybe not be a fanboy too much. Um, but yeah, all of us were very excited to see this story come back to life, and there's things that happen when you see these film sets in front of you. Like we've seen how they've all been made in the past, but it's quite a thing to see the real deal in front of you. So I feel very lucky that I had ringside seats to see how things were done. I'm not part of the camera crew. I'm not part of the making of the film department of people, but I got the one of the best seats in the house to see how everything came together to make that film. It was very interesting talking to the people working on the film about working on the film, and hearing their enthusiasm and their childhood dreams come alive in front of them with their work. I thought it was very endearing to be able to hear that kind of thing happen.
I love that. And I love what you said about how sound, Star Wars is a great example of sound and that you cannot separate Star Wars from specific sounds. Like anytime you're doing a lightsaber, you're going "Pshoo," and you're going whoa, whoa. Everybody
Exactly.
does that. Do you know what I mean?
Everybody does it.
Everybody does that.
Yeah.
And there's other sounds in, Star Wars as well. There, the TIE
TIE
fighters.
fighters.
There's Jabba the Hutt's laugh. There, Salacious Crumb's laugh. There's all kinds of stuff, right? So, like,
Yep.
I love this. So, can I just ask, in a full circle way,
Sure.
what sound when you worked on Star Wars made little Harish the most like, yes, this is
Excitable,
this is my
like a
life.
child again. Oh
This is my
man,
life.
that's there's so much of a film that doesn't get seen by the audience. So there's lots of prep work that happens that is invisible to what even gets presented to the film. Um, but it's part of the milieu that has to come together. Um, I don't know, hearing the C3PO, um, the actual costume sound, and hearing that divorced from the actual mechanical sounds that you hear in the finished products, I thought that was quite interesting. Um,
I'm so curious, real quick, what's the difference?
sure.
Like what, I mean, is it just louder or is it a different sound altogether when you hear C3PO in real life?
When you hear the film version, there's these piston, like gas
Yes.
piston sounds that you're hearing when he
Pew,
moves.
pew, Yeah, yeah.
all that kind of stuff. Um, Obviously, the costume on set is not that. That's a post-production layer that's added on. So when you hear it moving, but you just hear the clinks of 3D printed plastic, you think, oh wow, it's amazing just how connected that piston sound is to your expectation of what C3PO should sound like.
Mm-hmm.
That when it's taken away, the 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 mechanics of the magic sort of being shown to you by that sound not being there makes that sound even more interesting, even more worthy of your attention and appreciation when you do hear the final product.
I just love that. I mean, Star Wars is echolalia heaven, isn't it? It's absolutely like
Yeah,
I don't know of another film that is more like that
that's
makes
a
me do the
great,
sounds.
good call. Yeah, yeah. Everybody knows what happens if you go.
Totally.
Nothing isn't needed to be said. Um, and that is one of the most fun things about making an iconic sound register with the general audience and inspire copycatting, echolalia, and for them to take that meaning and make it their own, and the wonderful world of lightsaber videos and all of that kind of stuff that we've created for ourselves from that one thing.
Amazing. Oh my God. Oh, see, this is what I mean about how I could talk to you forever. Anyways, but we know we have to wrap up soon. But what
Sure.
I'd love to know is if there was something that you could tell, no,
Mm.
this isn't, just a little question, just a little question. Is there something that you wish the world knew, everybody in the world knew about sound? Whether it's why how important it is to them, or something to listen out for, or something about sound that would enhance their life if they knew more about it. Or even maybe if you want to learn more about sound, this is who you should be checking out. Anything. What do you
Wow.
think it would be?
I want to say so much more than this little conversation could get across. But if I had to nail it down to a little thing, the little thing I would say is so I went to art school and I had the best art history teacher you could possibly have. He was one of the kindest men in my life, for the entirety of my life, just a genius man. Anyway, I think the first day um, of of art history, and sticky rabble, we're all sitting there picking our noses and being annoying. He said one phrase that stopped the room in my brain, which is uh, I always get the origin of the phrase wrong, but I remembered it now because I wrote it down. It's Walter Pater's famous quote, which is, all art constantly aspires to the condition of music. So all of these art forms, all of the world around you, the designed world around you, is trying to do with you what music does effortlessly, which is the sound of music, the medium of music makes is indistinguishable from the feeling that it gives you. I might not have
Whoa,
been explaining that
I
well, but
love that.
but
It's
you hear music and you instantly know I like it, or ooh, what's this, or oh, that's awful, switch it off. That you don't need education, you don't need an essay on semantic, blah 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 blah, art speak about what that piece of art means. You like it, you're in, or you're not in, and it's no education required. And that's what's happening with your ears all day, every day, 24 hours a day. So I guess I would say that kind of thing, that the sound world around you has a meaning to it that is you.
Woo! I love that. Oh my goodness. I hate that we have to I hate that we have to stop the conversation, but we are definitely having a
Okay.
conversation. I see, this is what I mean. This is why I love talking to people who are doing really exciting things because you learn so much. And I just listening to your perspective on sound and how it is coded into who we are as humans, on top of Star Wars, is really, really exciting. So I just want to thank you so much, Harish, for like coming on this podcast and sharing all of this amazing insight and experience into your life and what sound has done for you. Thank you so much. So where can people find you, by the way? Like if they want to learn more about you, where can people?
I don't have much of a footprint out there. I have films out there that I've worked on that are doing the rounds, which is always nice to see sort of the larger feature films coming back onto Netflix, that I had a tiny contribution to, which is it's gratifying for me. I like seeing that kind of thing. Um, yeah,
Which ones
yeah,
would they
I've
be? Which set? Which
the ones if you look lower down on my IMDb when I worked on larger films,
just
they will
whichever
tell you.
ones you think you'd like people to check out.
There's a small, very niche film called Way of Life, um, which is a debut film from a director called Amarasante, and she went on to do like massive things. But I got to do a bit of stuff for that film. I feel proud of what I contributed to that film. There's other films that I contributed less to, but I find it very entertaining that they're out there, like Ladies in Lavender, which
Nice.
died a death in the cinema, but just never died. It keeps coming back, and people love it. And it's a very sweet film. I thought it was very enjoyable, and it's got my two favorite actors in it.
Yeah, I was gonna say
In
the cast is great too.
the cast
So
is
hello.
unbelievable. They're
Yeah.
my two favorite actors in my joint favorite film of all time, which is a bit of a niche choice for people like me. But I really like Merchant Ivory
Mm.
films. I like sort of period films and costume dramas and that kind of thing. And Room with a View
Oh my God, don't even
is a
get me started.
magical film to me, and the sound of that film. It's not particularly high tech, like the ADR is a bit ropey, but the music of that film is gold standard. It
Lovely.
brings a lot of memories to me.
Yeah. Magnificent. Oh, well, thank you so
Thank
thank you so much. I appreciate your time and coming on here to chat with the Institute of Neurodiversity's wonderful audience. So thank you again for your time, Harish Patel, and for sharing all this amazing insight.
you so much for talking to me. I really
Cheers.
appreciate it.
There was one more thing actually before we go, because I know you were involved in a book that's doing some really great stuff. So can you just tell us about it real quick? Because there's probably people in the audience who are going to want to
Oh
check it out.
yeah, sure. It's a book called One Track Minds, and it's a book of the show. The show is about the title says it all. True stories about life-changing songs. So we all have, like we said before, like we're all running a soundtrack to our lives, especially in teenage years. Like music is incredibly important to us. But we all have a piece of music that has been an accomplice to our lives, or was the turning point for us to think in a different way, or was the soundtrack to a very key point, key event in our lives. And that's what the show and that's what the book is about. And very graciously, they let me be in the book, which is amazing. And I get to tell people about the story about my favorite song, and how it's been the soundtrack to my life, in a way that you don't really notice until you investigate it, consciously after time. Um, but yeah, this is another place where you can find a bit about me. Maybe it'd be of interest.
Let's check it out. I love it. Who's it by the way, in case
Sure. The book is called One Track Minds.
yep.
The authors are all of us on the front, and edited by Christian Brody and Adam Shakinovsky, who are also the hosts of the show, which runs almost every month, in London. and all around the UK.
Amazing. Okay. I'm sure there's loads of people who are going to want to check it out. Yes, exciting. Plus, I'm going to want to see what your favorite song is. So I love it.
You
Thanks
will
so
laugh.
much. Thank you so much.